Hi, and welcome to Impact number 2. My name is Christopher Spalik from People Safety Solutions, and I'd like to talk with you today about a wonderful tool to improve your communication regarding personal protective equipment. Everything we talk about here today you can download on my webpage, or you can read it in the newsletter. So if you just sign up for it, you will have the graphics, you will have the templates in a much higher resolution than you see here on the video. So what are we talking today about? It's how to simplify your communication using the PPE Matrix. The PPE Matrix is a wonderful tool really to simplify all the requirements, all the things you need to follow when it comes to personal protective equipment. Because what is the basic problem? The basic thing here is that your information regarding personal protective equipment comes from multiple sources. So you have material safety data sheets, you have work instructions, you have a risk assessment, you have a lot of other information where this whole comes together, and it's creating a big clutter. So if you cannot see through it, how can your employees look through it? So PPE Matrix has the goal to get from clutter to structure. Different levels through the whole thing. Let's start with level number 1. Level number 1 is basically a simple multitask template like I showed to you here. On this template you have rows and columns, and in the columns you will write down the different PPE requirements, and in the rows you have the different tasks. So you connect now a task with the PPE by an X, and you can say for the welding a certain glove or a certain type of face mask is required. That's the very simple level 1 template. But you can upgrade the whole thing. Going to a level 2 is to be a little bit more specific, because just writing down that you need to have safety glasses is not giving too much information. So my recommendation here is to add something like pictures. A picture and might be a type you will use in there, and then it's getting much more clear what kind of PPE I have to use for this specific task. So level 2 is adding specifics to the whole thing, like pictures and description of the type we are using in here. When you have this level, you can upgrade the whole thing. Well, upgrading in this case means a kind of downgrading, because in the level 3 you don't want to have 1 million rows and columns describing every single task which you have on the site. You only want to have the stuff which is required for this specific workstation. So you eliminate everything which is not required in the workstation. So in this case, I took 1 column out because this PPE was not required in the workstation, and I took the tasks out which are not required in the workstation. By that, the whole thing gets much more simple. Simplifying it is the overall goal of a PPE matrix, and it should also be done with the information which we provide in here. You might find out that for certain workstations there's only one set of PPE. If you have only one set of PPE, you might want to opt in for a different way to communicate about it, which is like this one here, where you have a single task description showing the person what kind of PPE is required for this specific task, for this workstation, and if it doesn't change over the day for the different tasks, I think this is a very sufficient way how to describe what has to be worn in this environment. Putting it up here. So, simple tasks. Now when we go to level 4 of our PPE matrix, it is addressing minimum standards. It's addressing the things which you might need when you do multi-site management. On a multi-site management, one of the demanding things is to set a minimum standard. Because you have different locations, you don't want to have different safety standards in there. Also from an ethical point of view, it doesn't make sense to have a lower safety level in the one country and a higher safety level in the other country. So you define something what you want to have as a minimum standard for all the specific sites. Now, what I've seen there is that you issue a kind of minimum requirement PPE matrix. And now when we go to different locations, the locations will add their own additional add-on requirements. So they might use a different PPE, they might even want to have a higher grade of cut resistance, they have additional tasks to it. So some locations use the color coding, like we'll see here, might be the one is a red, the other one is a black one, just to make it clear this is the minimum standard which we have in the group, in the company, and we added some additional tasks, some additional PPE, some other things to it, because on our local risk assessment we came up with something, or we have tasks which are not described by the global standard. So this is a way how you can use a PPE matrix as a wonderful tool for multi-site management and to issue minimum standards. That's our level number 4. When we come now to level number 5, we extend our risk, our PPE matrix a little bit further. And level 5 means now nobody is forcing us to limit the information to personal protective equipment. You might want to add tools or documents which are required for certain tasks. So that's like the level number 5, extend your PPE matrix by tools and documents. Whoa. And add an additional column, for example, for safety knives, for certain templates which you might want to use. So this is an option how you can deal with a PPE matrix. One thing here to keep in mind is we want to simplify communication. So adding additional columns in there only makes sense if you still have a readable document. If you have 20, 30, 40, whatever columns in there and dozens of lines, the whole thing is not readable anymore. By that, your whole goal of simplifying communication is jeopardized. So make sure only the information you really need is in there. And if you want to work with tools or with documents and it's getting too cluttery, too clumsy, or whatever, you might want to opt for having 2 or 3 different documents in there. So one for the PPE, one for the tools, and one for the documents, if this is required. But it's really depending on your setting. And when we go now to level number 6, let's put it up here. A PPE matrix allows you also for additional information. Additional information can be something like, where do I get this equipment? So is it in this storage area, or do I have to ask my supervisor for it? But I can also add other information in, like maximum using time. For example, on chemical gloves, I've seen it very often that people are not really aware of how long am I allowed to use it. Is it a one shift usage? Is it like 15 minutes? Can I use it for multiple weeks or month? So this information is possible to add in this overview, and by that you have one document which really has everything in there, making it easy to communicate, to train, and to follow up on it. So, quick overview on the PPE matrix. Download it on my web page, where you have a template, and if you have some questions to it, I'm happy to answer to you. Write me an email or just make a quick appointment. We can have a call over it. Looking forward to hear from you. What are your thoughts about a PPE matrix? Might be you find some other tools which are really usable and helpful for working with personal protective equipment. That's from my side. Thanks a lot for watching. Thanks for your time. Stay safe. See you next time. Bye.